Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, two of showbiz's coolest cats, were more than Rat Pack members. They were its heartbeat. Their charm, flair, and heart-melting voices controlled the stage and made women swoon everywhere. With Sammy Davis Jr., they lit up Vegas like no one else. Rat Pack was more than a group. It vibed. Their jokes were easy, chemistry was electric, and performances were unforgettable. Not enough for fans. Frank and Dean seemed like best buddies off stage, laughing, drinking, and having fun. This is why Dean Martin's unexpected breakup with Frank Sinatra so shocking. Suddenly, no more calls, hangouts, or rat-packed magic. What could go wrong between two legends and best friends? That someone would suddenly close the door. The Stars' friends say it all came down to one moment, from knuckleboxing to the big stage. Before Dean Martin was the smooth-talking, whiskey-drinking king of cool, he was a rugged Ohio kid with a dream and a punch. Dino Paul Crocetti was born in Steubenville, Ohio, on June 7, 1917, to Italian barber Gaetano and Angela, an Italian-American woman with deep roots. Childhood wasn't glamorous. His mother raised the family with love and tenacity, while his father clipped hair in a modest store. Young Dino had William as an older sibling. Early on, things got scrappy. At 15, Dino entered the ring as Kid Crochet. He was tough, brazen, and broke, punching with bare knuckles since he couldn't buy tape. The result? The nose was mended, but there were lip scars and many bruises. Despite joking that he won all except 11 of his 12 matches, he fought bravely. But life had bigger plans for Dino. He moved to New York and shared a cramped flat with showbiz wannabe Sonny King. They tried something daring with little money and courage. Watching them bare-knuckle box in their flat cost money. Raw fights without a ring or gloves. One time, Dean defeated Sonny in the first round. Discuss hustle. Dino didn't exactly follow the rules after hanging up his gloves. Worked in an illicit casino under a tobacco shop, starting as a stock boy, then roulette stick guy and croupier. One thing remained constant: his voice. He sang with local bands as Dino Martini, a tribute to opera singer Nino Martini, influenced by Harry Mills and Perry Como. The Ernie Mackay Orchestra gave him his big break, and by the late 30s, his velvet voice was winning hearts. He began working with Cleveland bandleader Sammy Watkins in 1940, who advised him to change his name. Finally, Dean Martin was born. Dean began performing in NYC by 1943. He was briefly drafted into the Army during 1944, but a hernia dismissed him after 14 months. Stage calls persisted. He also discovered love. Dean and Elizabeth Betty Ann McDonald moved to Cleveland Heights in October 1941. 4 children were born before their 1949 divorce. The path from small-town boxer to America's most famous entertainment was arduous. It was Dean Martin, tough, amusing, and constantly surprising. Early Dean Martin's success. Dean Martin worked hard in New York City by the mid-1940s. The voice, appearance, and charisma were his. He sung in smoky clubs night after night, hoping for a Hollywood break. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Columbia Pictures noticed him but never offered. The spotlight was just out of grasp. Fortune intervened with a comedic twist. Dean met Jerry Lewis, a young, wild-eyed comic, at the Glass Hat Club at the Belmont Plaza Hotel in New York in August 1944. Their first discussion was brief, yet powerful. Jerry claimed Dean walked up and said, "Hey, I saw your act. Very funny, child." Easy words. But those words started a legendary entertainment duet. It started as friendship. Two entertainers competing on the same bill had a dream and a drive for success. They had something else. Electrical chemistry, like lightning in a bottle on stage. Then came July 24, 1946, at Atlantic City's 500 Club. Things went south quickly in their team debut. The crowd wasn't interested. Nobody laughed. Skinny D'Amato, club owner, was blunt after the first set. Make it work tonight or leave. Dean and Jerry huddled backstage with everything at stake. Without script or strategy, instinct. Jerry caused pandemonium, Dean sang. Indeed, they did. Jerry fell awkwardly on stage as a busboy, dropping plates and knocking into Dean, making the act amusing. Jerry caused chaos, but Dean kept his cool by singing. The room and crowd went crazy with laughter. They found the formula. After that night, Martin and Lewis became famous. The act was chaotic, surprising, and completely original. Nobody performed for the audience. They performed together. Dean was heckled mid-song by Jerry. Dean chased Jerry across stage. People loved the madness. Soon they headlined the Copacabana, performed to sold-out East Coast crowds, and redefined comedy with their music, slapstick, and charisma. Performing with Rodgers and Hammerstein on The Toast of the Town, they made their television debut in 1948. To stay current, they hired young writers. Today, you may recognize Norman Lear and Ed Simmons. These future legends polish their acts, exposing them to more people. Martin and Lewis had their own radio show and a new Paramount Pictures contract by 1949. Their first film, My Friend Irma, made them stars. It wasn't much, $75,000. But their agency gave them control, which was better. York Productions co-produced one film a year and ran clubs, radio, TV, and recordings. Money followed millions. Friendship was the act's heart, not fame or wealth. Jerry was Dean's best man in his 1949 remarriage. On stage, they were magical. Off stage, they were brothers. At least it seemed. Cracks appeared over time. Dean felt like the straight guy to Jerry's cacophonous comic. Creative differences became quiet resentment. Tension lurked behind laughing. In a surprise move, the curtain fell. On July 25, 1956, 10 years after their breakthrough, they performed their last show. Martin and Lewis's team ended, but their impact was lasting. They altered humor, television, and each other's lives, but the legend lived on after the laughter ended. Famous Rat Pack. Dean was still in the spotlight after Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin's curtain fell. He was only starting his greatest years. Martin was at his best by the late 1950s. His voice was silky like whiskey, his solo career was booming, and his confidence was high. In the wings. Another great Frank Sinatra had a cocktail ready to roll. Dean and Frank met in the early 1940s when Martin was a new musician attempting to break in. They didn't click until 1958, when they starred together and ran with Shirley MacLaine. The movie was successful, but more crucially, it started a friendship that would become a cultural phenomenon. That spark expanded beyond the screen. By the late 1950s, Martin and Sinatra led the Rat Pack, a legendary group, a juicy secret. They never claimed to be the Rat Pack. At one point, Sinatra was a member of a group led by Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Bacall originally branded them a goddamn Rat Pack after Too Many Crazy Nights. Martin Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop called their version the Summit or Clan. The Rat Pack name remained, and history followed. They were more than entertainers. They ruled cool. The Rat Pack commanded Hollywood nightlife, but Las Vegas made them famous. City spirits surged when the crew played at the Sands Hotel. Marquee Outdoors teased Dean Martin, maybe Frank or Sammy. The message was plain. In the building, anything may happen. And it did. They put on crazy, electrifying, surprising shows. Dean may joke one night. He then sang a ballad with Sinatra, jumping in mid-note. Lawford or Bishop kept the laughter going, while Sammy Davis Jr. tap-danced. In tuxedos, they drank martinis on stage and insulted each other like old buddies at a bar. And nobody, even themselves, were fair game. They made fun of Frank's dating, Dean's drinking, and Sammy's race and religion. Bold and risky, it always charmed. A deeper purpose lay beneath the swagger. Dean and Frank defended important causes with prominence. They stood up against segregation and hatred. They refused to perform in black or Jewish-free venues. They promoted equality via action. Even jeopardizing major gigs, their daring opened long-closed doors. The Rat Pack's charm persisted after the spotlight went out. George Clooney and Brad Pitt channeled their confidence in the Ocean's 11 revival decades later. Stories persisted at Dean Martin's Palm Springs residence. Vintage martini sets, hidden, tuxedos hanging, gang photos frozen in time. From singing in Vegas to changing industry, Dean Martin and the Rat Pack were more than stars. They were brothers, tuxedo rebels. They embodied cool. Dean Martin's rocky marriages. Dean Martin was more than a charming crooner. He was a heartthrob who kept love and marriage near. In 1941, a young Dean married Elizabeth Ann MacDonald. Craig, Claudia, Gail, and Dina were born in 1942, 1944, 1945, and 1948 from their love. Martin's career grew, but home life unraveled. In 1949, the marriage ended. Dean was single again after being granted custody of their 4 children, a rare occurrence. He didn't stay alone long. Martin married 22-year-old model and former Orange Bowl princess Jean Beager 1 week following his divorce. Though brief, it was his longest and most photographed romance. Dean and Jean became one of Hollywood's golden couples with her beauty and his star power. Dean Paul, Richie, and Gina were their children. Jean raised Dean's 4 children from his former marriage as her own as stepmom. The matriarch of the Martin dynasty, she bonded a large blended family. Over 20 years, they enjoyed the good life: red carpets, flashing cameras, matching tuxedos and dresses. Cracks appeared behind the glamour. In 1969, the fairy tale ended. Fans were devastated when Dean divorced. They found this breakup almost as painful as his professional parting with Jerry Lewis. As usual, Martin remarked, "It's gentlemanly to let the woman file, but I'm no gentleman. Even heartbreak has a conclusion." Dean didn't abandon love. His 1973 marriage to model-looking receptionist Katherine Hahn was his last chance at happily ever after. Since they didn't have children, they adopted Sasha, a girl who instantly became Dean's. This chapter was brief. The divorce came after a few years, and Dean was done. He never remarried. Despite breakups and heartache, one thing remained. Dean Martin valued family. Director Tom Donahue said Dean cherished family. Dean pursued connection on stage, television, and at home. Despite falling out of love, he was loyal to his family. Life tragedy of Dean Martin. Dean Martin was a family guy behind his swagger, sneaky grins, and smooth talk. On stage, he played the charming rogue with a drink and a joke. But off stage? He loved his 8 children, but Dean Paul Dino Martin was his favorite. After his second marriage to Jean Beager, Dino was more than Dean's golden boy. He was everything his father admired: charm, talent, ambition. He sang, performed, and played pro tennis. Just when you thought that was enough, he joined the California Air National Guard as a fighter pilot. Dino was creating his own legend, not just following his father. On March 21, 1986, that dazzling light went out. His plane vanished from radar over cloud-covered mountains as Dino flew a normal training flight across the California desert. Radio became silent. Panic ensued. The clock started ticking when the son of one of America's most adored stars vanished. The search began immediately. No planes, helicopters, or specialists. Days passed. Still nothing. Dean's longtime pal, Ronald Reagan, sent the nation's most advanced spy plane to help. At home, Martin was a wreck. He prayed for a miracle while chain-smoking in Beverly Hills. Still, he feared the worst, and so did others. This discomfort was familiar to Martin's old, rat-packed chum and best friend Frank Sinatra. His mother died in a plane crash in the same mountain range a decade earlier. Shivering, Sinatra muttered, "If there's anything I can do, pal," standing beside Martin. But no one could help. They could only await the call. Martin consulted psychics to discover Dino alive or dead. A psychic touched Dino's flight suit and recoiled, stating he was gone. Another directed him to San Gorgonio Mountain, where Sinatra's mother died. After 3 days, the search team found Dean's worst fear on the mountain: wreckage on the slope. There were no survivors. Dino died at 35. The news devastated Martin. Within him, something broke. Anyone who knew him saw. Dean Martin, the king of cool, departed the building. He was a shell, plagued by his son's death. Always the fixer, Sinatra thought he knew the answer. He invited Martin to a gigantic Rat Pack-style stadium reunion tour. He thought the crowds, spotlight, and camaraderie would cheer Dean up. Big error. Dean despised every moment. Martin enjoyed intimate club events, whereas Frank loved late nights and loud stadia. No more partying until dawn. He favored peace. Instead, he got people, bright lights, and an old acquaintance he couldn't relate to. The fissures appeared quickly. Martin forgot lyrics, mumbled jokes, and once flung a burning cigarette into the audience on stage. He felt unhappy about his decades-long lovable drunk reputation. No longer entertaining. I was in pain in a tux. After a bad night in New York, the trio went to their hotel. Frank wanted to party. Sammy Davis Jr. was willing, but Dean? He slammed his door in their faces. He traveled back to L.A. on his private plane that night without saying a thing. The tour struggled without him. Fans were shocked. The press spun. But Martin stopped pretending. The magic vanished. Even though he avoided the spotlight, one thing kept him going: family. Dino's death hurt, but Dean had 7 more kids. His family grew as they grew up. His son-in-law was Beach Boys' Carl Wilson. Dorothy Hamill, Olivia Hussey, and Carol Costello all did. Life moved on, and Martin kept his loved ones close. But the years were cruel. Although the stage refreshments were apple juice, the cigarettes were always real. Cedars-Sinai doctors gave him bad news in September 1993. Lung cancer. They suggested surgery could save him. Martin declined. His former self might have fought, but Dino killed him. Dean departed from public life in early 1995, the charming crooner who conquered films and Las Vegas. He quietly spent his final months with family and a few close friends, touching millions. In his Beverly Hills home, Dean Martin died of severe respiratory failure on Christmas Day, 1995. He was 78. It happened 29 years to the day after his mother died. A strange coincidence. Earth lost its cool king. No more singing, no more charm, just the echo of a life that captivated millions but ended in melancholy solitude. The real reason? Dean ended his Sinatra relationship. Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra were inseparable. Hollywood nobility, Rat Pack heart, charm, and mischief kings. Hidden behind the glamour, their bond became darker and dirtier. Dean ended his relationship with Sinatra, according to several close to him. He couldn't manage the anarchy behind old blue eyes, nor petty disagreements or rivalries. A crazy Beverly Hills night may have been the tipping point. Dean Martin's 49th birthday, June 7, 1966, was the day. He and Sinatra, at their peak, celebrated with exquisite cocktails, close companions, and late-night luxury. The Polo Lounge of the Beverly Hills Hotel, a luxurious, dimly lighted hangout for celebrities, deal-makers, and troublemakers. Martin had every reason to rejoice. He became the highest-paid entertainer of the time, with his film, music, TV, and Vegas roles. Sinatra, 50, still ruled stages and cinemas, loved 20-year-old Mia Farrow, and was worshipped everywhere. Their guest that night was Richard Conte, well known as Don Barzini from The Godfather. Jilly Rizzo, Sinatra's timekeeper and enforcer. An unknown woman or two was too common for a rat-packed night out. Jill Rizzo was huge. A muscular, glass-eyed former New York club owner, he was noted for his streetwise language and Sinatra allegiance. Jilly was the thunder to Frank's storm. The birthday celebration grabbed attention as they took over a large booth. Laughter raged. Alcohol flowed and colorful. Sometimes vulgar language abounded. They pretended to own Beverly Hills, but not all Polo Lounge patrons were enchanted. Frederick R. Wiseman, a 54-year-old multimillionaire and former Hunt's Foods president, sat at another booth. He was rich, influential, and respected in business and art. Franklin H. Fox joined him that night, family friend and 74-year-old Boston businessman. After a nice supper contemplating their children's wedding, they paused for a nightcap. They weren't ready for the Rat Pack's recklessness. They avoided the noise for 10 minutes. Weissman was fed up with the louder laughter and coarser words. He leaned over to order Sinatra's group to calm down. Something like, "You're too loud and there are women." The challenge surprised Sinatra. He initially believed Weissman was joking. He realized he was dead serious. Sinatra quickly said, "You're out of line." But celebrations persisted. What transpired next made the night perilous and foggy. The story changes drastically depending on who you question. Sinatra said Weissman hit him in the eye, blackening it. "I tripped and hit a drinking table. An unintentional fall, no push or strike." Franklin Fox said Sinatra made an anti-Semitic statement, ridiculed Weissman's glasses, and walked off, only to return in a frenzy. Martin and the others pleaded with Frank to refrain. Sinatra apparently grabbed one of the Polo Lounge's pink phones and threw it at Weissman's face, knocking him out. Another version, a frantic scramble, yelling, grasping, and Weissman ended up lying on his back, unmoving. One thing was constant in all versions: the thunk. Frederick Weissman fell with a painful thud amid broken crystal, a crumpled tablecloth, and an ashtray, not waking up. Fox attempted to revive him. Security raced in. Before the police arrived, the Rat Pack crew rushed Sinatra out into the night. Paramedics removed Weissman on a stretcher. Dean Martin quietly entered his home. His teenage daughter Deanna was surprised to see Dad home early on his birthday. He only claimed Frank blew a fuse tonight. "Can't let go." His response on whether anyone was wounded was ambiguous. "No idea. I know nothing." Things were far from done. Even though Weissman was treated and sent home that night, morning after morning, he didn't wake up. He was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital for a head fracture. A coma followed hours of operation. Doctors doubted his survival. Beverly Hills. Police Chief Clinton Anderson was worried by the news. John F. Kennedy's close friend and political and criminal ally Sinatra was well recognized. A man remained comatose, and the specifics were unclear. Anderson ordered a comprehensive probe. Detectives examined hotel workers and guests, but their statements didn't match. It was unclear what transpired. Weissman fell, was pushed, or hit. In addition, Sinatra and Martin had vanished, literally flown out of town. The chief assured reporters that Sinatra would soon emerge from hiding.